You got the opening of your can
I tried to,
right before the recording
yeah, yeah.
started.
I tried to beat the countdown so nobody
I
think, I'm tying one on here while we do a podcast.
So for those of you listening, like there's this countdown. We use Zencaster for anybody wanting to know what software we use. And the countdown goes 3, 2, 1. And like as soon as the 3 hits, you see Skip scrambling on his desk for his soda to crack it open. So anyways, today's episode is how to hire a good engineer slash employee. And this comes at a great time as unemployment in Nebraska is stupid low. I
Mhm.
haven't checked for this week, but it's been like around 1.8 for like the
Wow.
past month.
Wow.
And it's frustrating because you go out to hire somebody and there's literally no one. And I think it's because it may be the same way into Texas, but all these jobs opened up remote and we had all these really hard workers, these great people, and they took remote jobs where they could work from home.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so people like in the restaurant industry, especially any kind of service industry, is hurting for employees right now because no one wants to leave their houses, evidently. We
No.
kind of got used to the pajama pants and well, I'm just not putting on regular pants anymore.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
it, man.
I've
I
got my
mean,
Crocs, I've got my sandals, whatever it is you wear, and I've got my homebrew coffee. Why would I go back to a workplace? Why would I run all over town for you when I've got a
absolutely.
comfy chair at home?
Yep. I've been working remote since, to some extent, since 2015,
Yep.
and so the pandemic shows up, and everyone's having to stay in, and I'm like, hey, I've been doing it for a while. It's no big deal, and now I hear some people do wanting to get back out, and they talk about some of the benefits, some of these flex schedules and things, and that sounds pretty cool. But still, at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, most days I'm wearing shorts and tennis shoes, and I'm just able to, jump downstairs, grab something to eat, or,
Yep.
just do things around the house every once in a while. I have to go outside for a few minutes and, do
Hey,
something on the pool filter,
yeah,
just
yeah,
that 5-10 minutes.
I don't work from home. I have my own office space, and it's very nice. I've got my whiskey selection over here.
There we go.
I've got my Nespresso machine. I got my K cup machine for tea. I've got a fully stocked fridge. I've got couches. I mean, it's a pretty cushy setup. Could I go back and work for somebody again? Ew, man,
Yeah,
it'd
that
have to
sounds
be
hard.
a really, really hard sell. And
Yep.
so that brings
Yep.
up today's episode is like, how do you hire good engineers and employees in this climate today? Like, what, how? Now, entry level, you guys are all on your own because, wow, I do feel sorry for all of you with entry level. You got to offer some significant perks. Gas stations in particular. Like, how do you get people to work the gas station counter when they know they can go work for some insurance company's call center for an extra $10 an hour?
Yep.
You know, so I said, hey, give people free gas.
That
Don't
might
line up at
be.
your doorstep for that one.
Yep.
But with MSPs or even a corporate IT shop, how do you find these good engineers? How do you entice them away from their comfy hidey holes and into your organization? Luckily, I've done a fair amount of hiring, and I'm willing to bet Skip has too. And
Yep.
there are ways to entice engineers that are a little bit outside the box sometimes, but are pretty obvious other times. So one of my favorite ways to entice engineers is referrals.
Absolutely. I
Uh,
think, yeah. So going back, there's some things that we used to do that don't work anymore. But I think referrals they were great before the pandemic. They were great before whatever hiring crisis we want to call this existed. And I think today they are still probably the number one best source for new employees.
well, my firm belief is the mistake you have is that your engineers will just do this for free. Yeah, they want to bring in a friend of theirs from a previous organization, and that's great and all. But you got to entice them because we as
Yeah,
engineers are lazy.
we are. We are.
But if you tap, depending on the level of engineer, anywhere between $1,500 and $5,000, if you tie that to the hire, so if they are successfully make it through 3 months, this
Hmm.
employee gets a bonus for bringing them in because we're talking high level people. And those mistakes of hiring a bad engineer cost you way more than $5,000. If
Yes.
anybody out there's ever done a bad hire where the person just was a bad fit, maybe they just didn't have the skill set you were looking for. Maybe their personality was just crazy. But when you have somebody who's just not a good fit for the job, it can cost you a lot of money really quickly. I mean, we're talking like $80,000. So having $5,000 referral for a good fit for your company, where Alice goes out and gets her friend from a previous organization who's really good with Cisco operations and brings him over and says, "Hey, you know what? You come hire here. I'll split the referral fee with you." You know,
Yeah.
I know that you're happy in your organization, but I've moved over here and these guys have list out all the things.
Right.
And they said, also, we get to work together again.
We get
So
to work together again. I think
we
that
get
is a great, great point on that, because you want your team to work together, right? I mean, you don't want a bunch of just individuals. You want a team working together, and bringing these people in. They have at least a certain amount of respect. We kind of already know them, and so bringing in these well-established relationships is really going to have a great impact on that team aspect. Now, of course, there's probably always some exception, and we can probably all talk about, you know, uh, times where it didn't go right. But by and large, bringing in people that your people know is going to put you further down the road and give you a much, much greater chance of success.
Yeah. And my second tip, and I cannot remember who, I swear somebody talked about this on the podcast. So I want to attribute this to somebody, but I can't. And the answer is, when you're hiring somebody, have the owner of your MSP or technology reach out and give them a personal call. So, hey, you're looking at hiring somebody, or you're looking at reaching out and be like, hey, I am the CEO of Virtual C Enterprises. And I would love it if you would come in so we can talk about how you're a good fit for the company. I know that sounds just like, oh my gosh, I don't have that. But engineers
Mhm.
have their pride. They don't like
Wow.
being treated like secondhand citizens.
Yep,
And a lot of
that's true.
times you do end up being treated like, oh, you're just a janitor, or not that janitors are bad, but um, you're just a light bulb turner. And like, I'm an engineer. I'm highly educated. I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm valuable, and show me that I'm valuable. And having the CEO or the president of the company reach out and say, "Hey, we'd love to have you come in." So identify a high value target, and then have the president CEO reach out and say, "Hey, we'd love to have you come work for us." And I can personally vouch that your position is going to be a valued position in our company, and we're looking for the best.
Well,
That entices people. That would
it,
entice me.
it does. It does. And here is another kind of ancillary to that. Some of your engineers, all right, and now to be honest, I kind of fall into this route as well, so I'm not going to talk too badly about them, but sometimes your engineers live under a rock and they like it there, okay?
Yes, they do. We like our hidey holes.
Yes, we do. And so they may know someone that would make a great fit, but this whole reaching out and saying, hey, my company's got an opening over here, why don't you come in? Maybe it's someone they haven't talked to in a couple of years, or this, that. I mean, there's probably, any number of reasons why they may not reach out. But they might give the contact information to you. So you might have a couple of options. One, your employees reach out and say, hey, we've got this job open. I think you'd be a great fit. But two, in the vein of what you're saying, is having the president or a senior member of your staff take that contact information that your employees provided, and you do the reach out. You extend that offer. Maybe not the easiest way as the other, but still it validates this high value referral. It validates that this is someone that your organization wants to talk to, and it kind of removes some of the pressure off your internal team that like to live under rocks.
Yeah, and one of the things that really kind of helps out, especially with small businesses, so if you're under 500 employees, toot this horn. Like, you are employee led, you're employee driven, or
Yes, yes,
the value of the individual over the corporate. That's why I left corporate. I was making great money in the corporate world, and I just can't go back there. Good Lord, people. Being
Yep.
a number and being treated like a number when you're making as much money as I was just devaluing. Like, and then
Hmm.
so you reach out to them, you say, hey, look, we're a 25 person firm. You will you will make a difference here. Your opinion will be valued. We will treat you well. You'll get to work on really cool projects, but you get to work on a variety of projects, and you'll grow with the company. Engineers like to hear that. There's a lot
They
of
do. They
people
do.
that ended up in the corporate world because of the salaries, but now they're in their like mid to late 30s or early 40s, and they're realizing that the salary isn't worth it. And
Yes.
now they're looking for that flexibility. They're looking for that value. They're in that midlife, and they kind of want to know that they've done something well, and they want to know that they're in a company that is going to help them with their family, that is going to be flexible for them, and is also going to have those little perks that this only a small business can have, where you have direct access to the CEO if things are going wrong. You have direct access to negotiate your salary. You can get Bob down the floor to cover you, or if things go really south, you can get that extended vacation.
Hmm.
It's not a bunch of TPS reports you have to fill out just to get a cup of coffee. It's this flexible environment where everybody's more of egalitarian, that we're more level, and we're able to get stuff done rather
So,
than doing paperwork.
yeah. So I had a great season in my life for about 8 years. I worked with just a great MSP, and the culture was probably one of the best things about it. It was this very engineering, techie led culture, and we had guys that were experimenting with stuff, and we weren't, necessarily bleeding edge, but there were new products that our ownership would say, hey, we're going to buy this new stuff. Cisco, being in particular, we were a big Cisco partner. And Cisco would come out with something great, and our owner would buy it and talk to our engineering team and say, install this internally and see what it does. Let's play around with it. And so there was such a focus on doing the fun stuff and work, the technology stuff, that we really did develop this wonderful culture. And a lot of people would look at that and they'd say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of that team. I want those opportunities. And to be honest, I lost count of the number of people who came to work for us for less pay and less benefits, as far as, health insurance and those sort of financial benefits. But they came to work because it was a place where they could grow. It was a place where they could enjoy their time at work. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we spend a lot of time at work. You might as well enjoy your time there. And I think the hiring environment today is highlighting that. We see people, news article after news article of people leaving corporate America for all the reasons you just said, Adam, and they're looking for someplace to go. They still have to have a job. So don't be afraid that you can't call up some of those people that are making, really sweet salaries at some big corporate giant, and talk to them about an opportunity, because there may be a lot of benefits they're looking for that don't necessarily show up on a pay stub.
Yeah. There's the one company I worked for. They were a little bit, they were kind of a West Coast IT. And we were sitting there on a Friday afternoon, and we had this keg system at the workplace.
Yeah.
And once you're done with work on a Friday, we kind of just hang out. We'd play shuffleboard and hold a beer in one hand, eat popcorn. And this guy came in for an interview on a Friday afternoon, and we're all just sitting there, just having a pint, like sitting around the shuffleboard.
Yep. Yep.
And one of the guys in our group goes, "Man, if I walked into a place and they were drinking beer on a Friday, playing popcorn, I would do whatever it took to get a job there."
Yeah. And that's it.
Use
That's
these
it.
things. Now, if that's your style of workplace, then flaunt that.
Yes.
Flaunt
Yes.
it hard. Like, hey, everybody, we got an interviewee coming in at 2 o'clock. I'm calling it a day. Everybody grab a pint, go relax in the commons area. We're
Yeah.
gonna walk the guy by you.
There.
And just flaunt that. If maybe you're not a beer and liquor place, not everybody's partying 24/7, but maybe you have things like you have other perks in your organization, like people are working from home. Do the interview via Zoom.
Yeah.
Do
And let your
things.
dog on the screen. It's okay. It's okay
Yeah.
to put your dog on the screen.
Send them a care package before the interview of coffees or cookies or something, so that while they're in the interview, they kind of have this feel like, oh yeah, we ship our employees a care package once a month for if they're work from home employees. Whatever your perk is, let the interviewee in on it so they can see it, but value them. So as an engineer, you're walking into this place that is unique. Now that brings me to my third tip for hiring great engineers. Now, this is not everybody. I'm not speaking in absolutes here, but I'm saying people like to brag about their work.
Yes.
Have something that you have as a company that people can brag to their friends about. Now, if you're an East Coast or West Coast IT, that might be you have a wall of candy dispensers that entices
Yep.
people into the office. People love those. Maybe you have a series of Nespresso machines or custom grind coffee that you get, but have that thing that makes your company unique, that helps your culture expand, ready and available for them. So, like when they're thinking about taking this job, or even when they're thinking about applying to the job, like, don't you wish your life looked like this?
Yep.
And show, your best engineer in their bunny slippers and shorts, sitting at home drinking a cup of coffee and reconfiguring a Cisco. These are things that people want to be able to tell their friends over a pint after work. Like, yeah, I'm switching to this new job. When I get there, you basically get unlimited vacation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What?
That was it.
Unlimited vacation is a fantastic perk, by the way, for people, for engineers. One, because they never take it. Uh, you have to actually set a minimum to
You-
help engineers take the vacation.
yep.
But two, people are like, well, how much vacation do you get? All that I want.
What do you need?
Well, they're performance based. Or you're like, hey, we have certain perks. Like every 2 years, we send people to Cancun for a thank you gift.
Yep.
Whatever it is, have that ready and on your posting, have it talked about in your interviews, have those things ready to go so that people can brag about the job they're applying for. Because one, while you're applying for a job, people tend to brag like, oh yeah, I'm trying for this job at blah blah blah. And what's so great about that place? Well, they have unlimited vacation and sick leave. They have this candy wall where I can get runts all day long and my
Yep.
ruin my teeth. But you have these things that they can say, oh, well, I should apply there. Their friends are in the same field probably, and you're starting to create a stir. You're starting to create a demand. You want to work at company X because I've heard great things about that place. And like you start getting to this list of lines. So there are companies in town I know that engineers want to get into, and they kind of look at job offers every once in a while, waiting for a job opening at these places because
Yep.
they know the company culture is so solid. The
And
company has created a brand for
a
themselves.
brand for themselves. And ours, good and bad. We were kind of the cowboy environment. We just kind of out doing a lot of our own things, and that was really good. It provided some other challenges that we had to work with on the management side, but it was a place for people who are a little bit more independent. But where that worked out was it was people who could take responsibility for their jobs, that they didn't necessarily have to follow a list of 1 to 10 for things to do. We could give them a box and say, here, go install it, figure it out, talk to the client, develop the deliverables, and actually make this work, and then hand this over. This is what you need to do to make sure that the support team has it. And we could put a lot of effort on their side and free us up to do other things. So there's probably something unique about your business. Look for that, find it. One of the small things that worked out, and this is true I think for a lot of MSPs, but sometimes you might need to advertise it, was our leftover piles, or our scrap bin. All right, so in typical network infrastructure installs, you go and you replace all of this hardware. Well, you pull all this stuff out of the rack. What do you do with it? Does it go straight to the landfill? Well, hopefully not. There's a lot of things you need to do with that, but at least at some point, it probably sits in a stack somewhere in your facility. And I used to walk our prospective candidates by this big scrap pile of Cisco gear. And I would make a point like, hey, if there's something in there that you want, if you're building a home lab, all right, that used to be a big thing. If you're going for Cisco certs, you almost had to have your own home lab at one point. Right? And so being able to tell people, look, you're welcome to anything in this stack. And there are so many technical engineering type people out there who would love to just sit around and fiddle with some of this stuff. That was interesting to them. So there is something, whether it be the candy wall, ours, we would walk again through the kind of the big bullpen area, our big ops center. We had a large projector to shoot up on a whiteboard and do all sorts of cool stuff with, which didn't really get used that often. What it got used more often than not was playing video games. And so there was a season when we had what was it, Guitar Hero, what was really popular. And so we had the Guitar Hero drum set sitting right out there in the very smack dab middle of the floor, so it could be in front of the big screen. And of course, the little guitars, hanging up next to it. And people walk by and they'd look at that like, "So y'all play video games here?" Like, yeah, if the guys got a few minutes, if they want to take a break during the day, sometimes they would stay late. I mean, it was whatever they wanted to do. And it created this culture where people enjoyed showing up for work. And
Yep.
that's really what you need to develop, because now, especially since we have so much of this remote work, you can't be standing there next to everybody. You can't be holding their hand and making sure that they're getting their job done. It is going to be more performance driven. So you need people that are self motivated.
Yeah, and creating those kind of on-site perks for those of you who have to have your employees come in, you have to make your job site more enticing than the home site.
Yeah.
You people like, do you really want to be like engineers? Again, recluses. Do you really want to be stuck at home? Or do you want to come into a place where we have all this stuff? So one of the last things I want to talk about from a hiring good people is branding. And I know as technology people, we tend to stay away from the idea of branding. It's money down the toilet. Why would I want to spend money on branding? Because you don't want to go into an engineer and say, "Hey, come work for us." And think, "Well, who are you?" If your
Yep.
brand image
Yep.
is strong, that sells itself. Oh, you get to work for Virtual C, Humanize IT, managed services platform. Um, and then, oh, that's somebody people recognize. I get to work for a name. I get to work for a brand. Oh, you work for them? Cool. And we do have places like that here, even in Lincoln, where, oh, you work for them. I don't have to explain who they are. Everybody knows who Huddle is, for instance, in Lincoln.
Yep.
Um, and so when you come in and you say, you get to work for us, we want you to be a part of this team. Not that we're doing you a favor, but you become part of the brand.
There's some
You get
prestige
to
there.
have the prestige of working for this company. Now, don't say it like that because you come off like as a jerk. But
Yeah, that's
it
true.
should just be known. Like if you have physical print media out there, if you have a presence in your town where people can see on a billboard, that's who this company is. Now you're kind of doing cool things like having the wraps on your cars that are cool that people see all over town. Like, oh, you work
Hmm.
for them. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So have a brand that is strong because that will help people remember you and possibly be looking for jobs when they're having that frustrating day at their current job. They're like, oh, this place just does not appreciate me. And like, oh, I always see those, geek cars running around, or I always see those billboards for this company.
Yep.
I wonder if they're hiring. And then they'll Google your site and look at your jobs and careers. Oh, they are looking for a Cisco engineer. I'm gonna go ahead and apply to that. And so that's a great way to get engineers, but also when you're doing a headhunter or somebody like that, they can leverage that to find you more quality people.
And now let me offer one sort of, more technical resource in this. and that is leverage some of the things that are available out there in the personality styles or traits. I know there's a lot of them out there, the Myers-Briggs sort of thing. I'm a little bit more familiar with the DISC assessments.
Oh, I love disc.
I do too, and again, I'm more familiar with that one, so I like it, but I know there's some value in a lot of the other ones. If you're part of the ConnectWise community, I know a lot of our listeners and members are. They had something here of late. I think they called it Giant, and I saw just a little bit about it. Whatever it is, there's a lot of resources out there. A little plug here for a company I worked with several years ago called Sunstone Coach. You can reach them, sunstonecoach.com. If you call them up, tell Joanne I said hi. And they is really, really insightful. And why I bring this up real quickly, there was a little story. I won't go into too much detail because if you know the details, you know all the people involved in this one. But we were hiring an engineer one time, looked great on paper, very competent, and we put him through kind of our review process. And to a T, everyone that interviewed him, it was a mid to senior level position, they came back and said, he's great, but there's just something about him I'm not quite sure about. And so I contacted Sunstone and we did the DISC assessment. And Joanne calls me up and she does the review with me. And now she's never talked to this person face to face through an email exchange or anything. All she's doing is reading the back end data off of their analytical tool. And so she gives me an assessment and pretty much the same thing my team says. Hey, this guy looks pretty good. But then I'll never forget at the end of the conversation, she goes, Skip, I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's something about this guy. I can't put my finger on it. And I about lost it. That was just hilarious because she was able to read from this, personality trait sort of a survey, something that my team had picked up in person. So it is a very validating exercise, is what I guess I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So there's some additional tools. I would leverage those for some insights because, an interview and a resume may look really good, but if you're looking to hire great people, there is a people component you need to make sure you understand. It's not just do you have the cert, do you have the availability. You really do need to understand that. And so dive deep into that. It may be a little bit more work and you may have to expand your net a little bit wider, but when you find the right people, they stay longer and they provide more value.
Yeah, and that's my wrap up for this is that we've talked about referrals, personal call from the CEO, perks, like show off your perks, and then finally branding. Another thing that happens with these four things is it allows your current employees to stick around.
Yes.
And it reminds them of what's going on. It reminds them of what's going on and creates a stronger work environment. But you can have a litmus test for, is your environment healthy? Look at these things. Would you want to work here? Do your current employees have pride in working here? What would they brag about with your company? Is your CEO currently actively involved in relationships in your company? And is your brand strong enough to attract people? These are good things to go through. So when you're trying to figure out, like, why aren't people coming and working for me? Ask yourself the honest questions. Why should they work for you? Are you an environment that is attractive to engineers? Because people will come. Right now, we are in a state of flux in the economy, and people are moving around. Are they settling at jobs of choice, or are they settling at jobs they have to? So become what we call an employer of choice by following these four ideals, and you will see your current employees getting a lot happier, and you'll see a lot more people applying to your jobs and higher quality people coming in to make your company a higher quality company.
That's it.
So thanks, Skip, for this episode.
Sure.
I've been really kind of holding on to this one for a little while, and we have a number of ones coming up that we're going to talk about, like talking like a CFO, talking like a CEO, why PowerPoint is costing your MSP money, and can you run your clients completely via SaaS?
Ooh, there we go.
So we'll see everybody on next week's episode.